Planning a trip to Walt Disney World in Florida can be so magical, but also a tiny bit stressful because there is so much to organise and do before you leave. Well, do not fear, I've got you covered because in this video I'm sharing everything you need to do before a family trip to Walt Disney World in Florida. I am Ree, welcome to my channel Mummy of Four Does Disney, where I share in-depth Disney parks and Disney Cruise Line vlogs full of all the tips, tricks and hacks you need to make your trip super magical and much less stressful too. To plan our next Walt Disney World trip, which is coming up very, very soon in January of 2024, so make sure you are subscribed with bell notifications on so you do not miss any of the vlogs. But I am using my very own magical trip planner. You may have seen me talk about my trip planners before in my Disney Cruise Line and Disneyland Paris vlogs. This is the first time that we're taking the trip planner to plan Florida. Now, you do not have to buy the magical trip planner to plan a trip to Florida. You can just note down everything I'm saying in this video. But if you want to grab your own copy, either digital to be printed out or filled in on a tablet, or spiral bound or perfect bound book versions, all of the details are on screen, down in the description and in the accompanying blog post. So the first page of the magical trip planner, we have got a space to write your family name, how many nights you're traveling for, the magical night trip to the park you're traveling for to, so in this case it's Walt Disney World, and the date in which you are traveling. The first few pages include a countdown to Disney, planning checklist you can refer to as you head through the planning process, somewhere to put emergency contact details, and somewhere to note down different vlogs and channels that you want to follow before your trip. So something you're going to need to do before Florida is to work out your Disney budget. There is a space here in the trip planner to estimate all of the amounts that you're going to have to spend on various elements of your trip, and then a space to write in the actual cost of what you really end up spending. Alongside your budget, you're going to want to get saving for Disney as soon as possible. And you've got to say, saving for Disney is so much more interesting than normal because you're in your real life going, do I want this boring real life thing, or do I want more money for Dole Whips? Dole Whips are going to win every time. So once you've done your research and you've watched some vlogs, hint, hint, I've got lots of vlogs on this channel if you want to check them out, you're going to want to book your main trip. You can book direct with Disney, you can book individual elements of the trip yourself, or you can go through a travel agent. For our January 2022 trip, I booked direct with Disney, but for this trip, as it was a bit more complicated, there were a few more moving parts because we're doing 7 nights in Walt Disney World, followed by 4 nights on the Wish. I worked with a travel agent who organised all of that for me, and I found that quite simple and straightforward. There is a space in the magical trip planner to collect quotes, so you can shortlist the best options for accommodation, flights, etc. If you're flying from the UK, you can fly from Manchester or Heathrow with British Airways or Virgin. We flew with British Airways in 2022 and we'll be flying with Virgin in 2024. Both British Airways and Virgin fly direct into MCO, which is the airport in Orlando. You can look at other options for different airlines if you're planning to do a fly drive. For accommodation, you want to think about, are we staying on-site or off-site? In 2022, we stayed on-site in the Art of Animation Resort, and we'll be staying on-site again in 2024. Although the perks of staying on-site have gone down over the years, as certain perks like magic bands and things have been taken away from on-site guests, there is one distinct perk for staying on-site that not a lot of people talk about, so stay tuned and I'll share that later in this video. You need to organise park tickets. Now, if you're flying from the UK, you can often get a deal, which we've had both on the last trip and this trip, where you pay for 7 days of park tickets and you actually get 14 days. You're going to need your passports. Make sure that these are renewed in plenty of time before your trip. This is not a last minute rush that you want to have to deal with. So that you remember, write down in the comments right now, are your passports up to date? When do they expire? Do you need to sort them out? This is such an important thing to do before your Florida trip. So let me know in the comments if your passports are Florida ready. You're going to need to make sure you've got appropriate insurance to cover you and your entire party for the duration of your stay. You can purchase this just to cover your trip. Our family has an annual holiday insurance policy along with our banking. And if this isn't something you have at the moment, then speak to your bank. It might be something they're able to offer. There are some pre-flight compliance matters you will need to deal with before you travel. When we travelled with British Airways, they needed our passport numbers, nationality, the government that issued that passport, for us to confirm our full names, genders and date of births, the address while we're in the US, green card or US visa details if we had them, our telephone numbers, email addresses, some secondary contact details and a declaration. And I'm assuming this is pretty standard across all the airlines. You're going to need to apply for an ESTA in order to travel to the US. These last for 2 years and need to be in place at least 72 hours before you arrive in the States. But really, I would recommend getting these organised as soon as possible, as soon as you've booked your trip. This is kind of up there with the passports as something that could really put the brakes on you being able to go to Florida. So get your passport sorted and get your ESTAs sorted, and the rest can be figured out. COVID compliance. Now, this is a bit of good news since the last time I talked about what you need to do before Florida. Before our last Florida trip, it was 2022. It was the height of all the COVID craziness. We had to do testing, we had to do declarations. It was a whole load of stressful stuff that went on. In fact, we were here in this very room doing our COVID tests, and then we were waiting for the results to come through. The cases were literally in the airport transfer, and we were not sure if we were going to be able to go. I'm delighted to say that as of the 12th of May 2023, there is no requirement to show proof of COVID vaccination when you're arriving to the United States. I can't tell you how happy that makes me. It was so stressful last time, thinking, are we going to be able to go? And we're not going to be able to go. We no longer have to wear masks on the aeroplane. And last time it was a legal requirement for everyone over the age of 2 to be wearing masks on the plane. This was incredibly challenging for our children. So I'm so glad that this time we're going to be having a normal kind of trip. Park reservations. Now here's another bit of good news. We love a bit of good news. Although at the time of filming, park reservations are currently required. From the 9th of January 2024, theme park reservations are no longer required for date-based tickets. Meaning that when we show up in Florida, as long as we have a ticket to get in the park, we can choose whichever of the 4 parks we wish to visit that day without any prior arranging. Although we have already decided which parks we're planning to do on which days because we have booked our dining reservations or our ADRs. Now I've got a full in-depth video which you can check out after you've seen this one about ADRs and the advanced dining reservation system, exactly what you need to know and what you need to do in order to book those ADRs and to grab the best dining reservations possible. Now I did say there was an additional benefit from staying on site that I would share, and that is that you can book your advanced dining reservations 60 days before your trip. Now if you're staying off site, you can book 60 days before each individual day. So if your first day is a Monday, then you can book 60 days before that, and then your second day is a Tuesday, you book 60 days before that Tuesday. And that's how it works if you're staying off site. If however you're staying on site, 60 days before the first day of your trip, you can book the first 10 days of advanced dining reservations, meaning you can log in and do so much more in one sitting, and you're far more likely to grab those precious dining reservations that you are after. Like I said, full details in that vlog where I go through all the information you'll need, including making your bucket lists, how to physically log on and book your ADRs, and my recommendations for which restaurants I would suggest aiming for. Next thing you're going to need to organise before you go to Florida is getting to the airport this side in the UK and how you're going to be getting home. Are you going to be driving, booking parking? Are you going to be driving to the airport on that day or the day before? Are you going to be getting lifts, public transport, private transfers? Now we have opted once again for private airport transfers because although technically we could drive to the airport, we have so many cases to go to Florida, we just struggle to fit them all in the car. And also driving back with jet lag, we live in Wales, we're flying from Heathrow. That would be really, really challenging. So airport transfers work out really great for our family. We're actually heading up the day before and staying overnight in a nearby hotel, just like we did last time. Because the way the traffic is in the UK, I would rather be close to the airport. When we've been to Disneyland Paris and we've flown from Bristol, we're that much closer to the airport. So as long as we make it there in plenty of time, I feel comfortable doing that. For this long haul flight, flying from a much further away airport, it just makes sense to me to stay the night before, feel a little bit fresh the day we're flying, and take away the stress of traffic. Then you need to think about airport transfers, the Florida side. The Magical Express is no longer in operation, but last time we used Mears Connect, which is the service that replaced the Magical Express. Now, Mears Connect is a paid for service, whereas the Magical Express was complimentary for resort guests, but we found it really, really efficient. We had a minibus picking us up and taking us to the Art of Animation where we were staying. And then on the way back to the airport, it was a bus that picked us up, but I think it was only us and maybe 1 or 2 other people on the whole bus. We did go for the premium offering, which is a little bit more direct, a little bit less around the houses, because I figured my children might be quite tired and overwhelmed after a long haul flight. You could also choose to book a private taxi call an Uber, or hire a car. Next thing you need to organise, if this is relevant to you, is the Disability Access Service. I'm not going to go into this in a load of depth in this video, but I do have an entirely separate video explaining the Disability Access Service and how all of that works. I'm also going to be putting together a new version of this video to go alongside our trip in 2024, with even more tips for how you and your family can maximise the Disability Access Service if this is something that applies to you. I'll link that video down below so you can take a look after this one. Next thing you need to consider is travel money. Are you going to be taking dollars in cash, using credit cards? I will be taking my Monzo card. This is the card that I use abroad. Well, I initially got it just to use abroad, and I've got to be honest, I use it at home a lot as well now because it's so great. I initially got it because spending on a Monzo card means that you don't get currency conversion fees abroad, which is fantastic. You don't end up with an extra bill on your credit card just for all those currency conversion fees. But it's such a good system. It's more like a really great app that developed a bank than a bank that developed a subpar app. You can put money in different pots for savings and things. I think it's absolutely great. This is not an ad, I'm not working with them or anything, but I do have a private referral code. So if you use my code, then when you sign up for Monzo, and bear in mind, I use the free plan and it's absolutely great. But when you sign up for Monzo and you make your first transaction, then you get £5 added to your account and I get £5 added to mine too. So I use it both at home and abroad now. It's really, really handy. It's got facilities on there for splitting the bill if you're with other friends and family, putting money into pots. I actually put money into separate pots for each of the children, and then I show them on the app how much money they've got left to spend. I feel this is just a safer way than physically giving them cash to carry around, especially since so many places in the world are cashless these days. With that being said, you could still use your own debit or credit cards or get cash. A word about credit and debit cards, it is perhaps worth mentioning to your bank or credit card provider that you are heading abroad to make sure that your cards are not frozen accidentally, thinking there's some sort of fraud going on because your card's being used abroad. It's worth getting in touch with your mobile phone provider to check that your signal and service is going to be valid and you're on the best plan for using in the States. And then you've got to get on with some outfit planning. This is so much fun. It's not essential for a Disney trip. You can wear just your own clothes, but for my kids, they absolutely love planning which restaurants we're going, matching the outfits to the restaurants. I have got a full video for everything we wore to Walt Disney World last time. Obviously, there's all the vlogs where you can see the outfits, plus loads of outfit planning videos for Disney Cruise Line, Disneyland Paris. So you've got loads and loads of ideas in there. And if you want to see what we'll be wearing for Walt Disney World on this coming trip, then make sure you're subscribed with bell notifications on. Then before packing, we need to consider cases. Now you need to check with your specific airline about your specific luggage allowance. For us, we're going to be taking one medium American Tourister sized case each and one cabin sized case each, which we'll be taking as carry-on, plus a shoulder bag which will fit under the seat. So then, as well as the size of the cases, you need to consider the weight of the cases to make sure you are weighing your cases once they are packed. And that's the next thing you've got to do. You've got to get packing for your Florida trip. I've got so many pack with me videos on this channel, crammed full of packing tips. There is an entire playlist that I will link below. Make sure you check that out for loads of tips, and you can pop it on in the background as you're packing and we can pack together. So perhaps one of the most important things you need to do for your Florida trip is put in your important trip dates. These need to go into your planner, and I'd also put them with alerts in your digital calendar too. You need to know when your deposit for your trip is due, when the balance for your trip is due to make sure that you're actually able to go. And you need to know the date where you can book your advanced dining reservations. And if you're using Disability Access Service, the date where you can organise this too. Before your trip, you're going to want to fill out your bucket list to make sure that you are maximising your trip and making sure that you come away having done all of the magical things you want to do. Make sure you've written a bucket list for which attractions you want to do, which shows you want to see, which characters you'd like to meet, which quick service restaurants you'd like to dine in, which table service restaurants you'd like to dine in. And obviously this one's really important to do before you do your advanced dining reservations. Make a list of the snacks you're looking for and where they can be found in the parks. Again, vlogs are so valuable when you're making these bucket lists. It's a really great way to get excited about your trip and make sure that you're not going to miss out on anything that you would love to do. Space for noting down your outfits and then planning out everything everyone's going to wear each day. As you're doing your packing, there is a packing checklist to complete, plus a list to tick off for other miscellaneous items. As you're doing your packing and your planning, make sure you've written out your pre-Disney to-do list for any specific things that you're going to need to make sure you get done before your trip. And then there's a pre-departure checklist for all those last minute checks for the bits and pieces you have to do before you get to leave for the airport for your magical trip. Then all that's left to do is to plan out each day. Jot in the times of the shows you want to see, the dining reservations you have, the park opening times, and your bucket list for each day. This is a fun activity to do on the plane, in the airport, and even day by day, in the evenings or while you're getting ready in the morning. It's something my kids really enjoy doing on a Disney trip, to really get involved in owning their own days and making sure that each day is maximized and they're getting to do the things that they really love. And then there's a space for writing your magical memories and all of the amazing things you've done that day. Again, this is a fun thing my kids like to do, to fill in on Disney trips. It's something they like to fill in during the queues or at dinner to keep them busy and occupied. So when is your next Florida trip? Is this something you're thinking about booking, something you'd love to book, or have you got a countdown on the go? Guys, I love to hear your countdowns. Let me know your Disney countdown in the comments, where you'll be going, where you'll be staying. I want to know all of the Disney details. I love it. So videos coming up for you. I've got the outfits we'll be wearing to Walt Disney World. I've got the pack with me video. I've got the new in-depth version of the Disability Access Service video, and then there will be all the vlogs. So you can click on screen to see another video that I know you'll love, or you can check out my Patreon where you'll get early release videos. The vlogs are out every Sunday at 8 AM, but as soon as they're edited, they're in my Patreon. So check that out over there to see all of the Disney magic first. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, do those YouTubey things, and I'll see you guys soon. Mwah. Bye.